Thank you. Call to order the public select board meeting for Rockport. It's April 26, 2021, 5:30. We're still operating under the pandemic rules, and that means Zoom meetings. And on the agenda that we passed around, we have the information as to how to make a comment to the town manager during the course of the meeting, which is wpost@rockportmaine.gov, or you can submit a note through the chat, I think, on live stream, right, Bill?
Right.
All right. The first item on the agenda is the town manager's report.
Excuse me. So I won't go through the written report as I usually don't. That's there for everyone to peruse in your packets, and obviously is available online on the website. But I will add one item to that, and that is that the administrative assistant in the planning and police department has passed her test to become a licensed plumbing inspector. So Bill Napower, when he left the town, he served as our alternate licensed plumbing inspector and alternate code enforcement officer. So this is something that she had been studying for and the like. And so I'll be appointing her as an alternate to Scott Bickford, which will be very good because that'll give us a backup for when he's not there. I'll also be appointing her as alternate code officer. And she has not passed all of her tests for being certified for that at this point, but she has up to a year to become certified. But this will allow her to get out in the field and actually really learn it instead of learning it from the books and that sort of thing, especially when it comes to the LPI perspective, licensed plumbing inspector perspective. So
Right.
I know we had talked during the budget time about another department with having our own employees learning and getting education and moving up and all that sort of thing. So this certainly helps us and helps her as well.
Yep. Great. Good job, Mandy.
That's my report other than what was written.
I just want to say, I think it's great that you found these Opera House potential grant monies.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah. It is. It won't give us, the full amount of revenue that we've lost, but at least it'll give us something. Anything is better than nothing.
Yeah, it's great. Any other questions? All right. Just double checking on my other screen. Nope. Okay, the next item is public input on non-agenda items. Bill, have you gotten anything from the public?
Let me check my email quickly. I see nothing in email and nothing on chat either.
Okay. Amendments to the agenda. Are there any suggested amendments? Not seeing anything. Don't have anything either. Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda. We have the resignation of David Cockey from the ZBA, meeting minutes of April 19th, and quick claim deed for Valerie Kelly. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I move the board approves the consent agenda as presented.
Somebody like to second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call. Jeff?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And thank you, David Cockey, for serving on the ZBA. I know there's a lot of long nights involved in that and a lot of time spent. So thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the action items. The first item is to act on the investment management services recommendation. Bill?
Yes, and the chair of the investment committee is supposed to be with us. As you know, we have a waiting room in effect, and I don't see him in the waiting room at this point. So I don't know if you want to perhaps wait to see if he joins us and move on to the next item, or if you'd like Megan and I to.
Yeah, well, why don't we just wait a few minutes and then move on? I see Sarah is here.
Yeah.
So why don't we go to Sarah and then try to return to this one? So the next item is authorization for use of sidewalk for dining for 9 of June. And Sarah has submitted this request to us to put a couple of tables out front in front of her place. Bill, would you like to go ahead and expand on that?
Yes.
And welcome, Sarah. Go ahead, Bill.
Yep. So I also forwarded separately from your packet the request for extension of her liquor license, which basically just allows her to serve alcohol outside on the sidewalk. And there was a map that went with that, or a drawing that went with that, that shows the location of, I think it's 3 tables with 2 chairs each. That would. It's important to keep the at least 4 feet of sidewalk available for pedestrians to use the sidewalk. And she has that and more space. When she first brought this up, the first thing we did is we went down and measured the sidewalk to see how much space was there, see if it could be done. And at that point, we continue to move forward. I have talked with the town's attorney about this. And while he recommends that an ordinance be enacted to create a permit process, licensing process for this going forward, he said that other communities have done this under the state of emergency that still is in effect statewide, and I'm sure you've seen it in other communities as well. So he felt that the board could do this under that authority. And my goal would be to have an ordinance that would permit this and license this and have a process in place. So if other establishments would want to do this in the future, that the select board has something in place to do that.
Okay, great.
I think if Sarah wants to.
Yeah, Sarah, would you like to add anything?
I'm just hopeful that I can do this. We're still facing some distancing regulations inside, which impacts obviously my ability to have as many seats as I'd like. And with the warmer weather coming, I'd like to be able to seat people outside a little bit more too. So it seems to me that as long as I make sure that it's barricaded and I'm really tightly controlling the alcohol aspect, that shouldn't be a problem. And I think I marked on the place where our host stand would be and normally is. So somebody's really watching that and paying attention to it. And that's about it, really,
Great.
Yeah, and I do want to add that because of the distancing requirements within the restaurant itself, that when I was talking with Code Officer Scott Bickford about this, it's important to note that you can't, Sarah, you can't exceed the number of tables or seats that you have for the entire restaurant, because then it would trigger other types of review. So we know you won't do that. Because,
right. No, definitely not.
Yeah, because they're spaced apart. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to do this.
Exactly.
All right.
And so the board information, because I didn't include the liquor license extension, you have the suggested motion. I would also add on to that the phrase "and approve the liquor license extension as submitted."
These, will these only be 2 tops?
Yes.
Okay.
I move the board approve the request from 9 of June to use the sidewalk in front of 24 Central Street for outside dining as requested until October 31, 2021, with the requirements that 4 feet of sidewalk be unencumbered to allow for pedestrian use, and that all state liquor laws are followed, and approve the liquor license extension as submitted.
I'll second.
Okay, Jeff seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, Jeff,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
and I vote yes. And I can't wait to eat there, Sarah.
Yes.
We're so excited to open up. I can't tell you. Thank you, guys.
All right.
I'm
Thank
hoping
you.
for a great summer. All right.
Take care.
Bye.
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 All right, so I think Mark has joined us. So now we're back to Act on Investment Management Services. Back up to that one.
Yeah, so I'll open this quickly. Mark, yeah, he's there. So I'll open this quickly and just say that the investment committee had created a request for proposals after revising the investment policy, which was approved by the board previously. The RFP was sent out to 7 firms and advertised locally. We received 8 proposals. Out of those 8, the committee interviewed 3, and they are recommending that the town select First National Wealth Management as the investment manager for the town's trust fund. This is a change from the current wealth management company, which is Bar Harbor Trust Services. So we're recommending that it be effective July 1st, which is the first day of the fiscal year, just for ease of use within the finance department. So with that, I think I just turn it over to Mark.
Yeah, Mark, you want to add anything?
I don't think there's much to add. I appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate the work that the committee put in. As you may recall, we also redid our bylaws in advance of this, so I think everything is current and the way we would like it to be from a philosophy perspective. And the first matched up with our philosophy. They have great experience locally in municipalities, and so it seemed like the best fit for us.
How did the financial benefits vary from where we are to where we're going?
Well, that's an interesting question. All you can really say is cost, and cost-wise, this will be a benefit to us. We are philosophically changing from an individual securities kind of an approach to a fund-based approach, which also creates more diversification in the portfolio, which is a good thing, and also will drive down the cost. And so I think from that perspective, it's a win. What you can't say is what will happen, but what we can say is that for the past 13 years or so, we have been hitched with a value investment shop, and it has been pretty much, with the exception of a few months here in the last year, the worst 13 years of value investing known to man. So we're happy to make a change, and of course, when we do, value will come back. But that's the way these things go. So we're doing what we believe is the right thing.
Is Bill or Mark, I guess, is there a requirement of us in our schedule of reviews to do this every 3 years? Or Mark, I don't know whether you have a recommendation on that. I mean, you did a lot of work on it, you guys. I just don't want to fall behind the same 13 years without it poking its head up and us taking a look.
I can answer the first.
Well, I'll let Bill answer the technical side of that.
Yeah, I'll answer the first part and just say we don't have there's no requirement that says it has to be reviewed every X number of years. And then I'll leave Mark to answer the other aspect.
Yeah, and to be honest, we've been belly aching. I've been on the committee, I want to say probably 5 years now, maybe 6, and heading it up for the past 3 perhaps. And there hasn't been a time where we haven't belly ached about this a bit, but at the same time, it wasn't abysmal performance. That's not what we're saying, but we think we could do better. And so, yes, I think there's probably some merit to saying we should at least revisit performance relative to benchmarks with you all on a 3 or 5 year cycle. What I don't want to do is get wed to, we got to come in and tell you everything's going fine, because our hope is that will be the case. And in fact, we look at the reports on a monthly basis and track those things. So I think the answer to your question is we probably didn't act as quickly as we should have but we won't make the same mistake again.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
No, but I just wanted to thank Mark and the committee because they did an exceptional job of getting the RFPs out, doing the interviews, getting all their bylaws in order. It was not a small task. So certainly thank you for all the time that you put into that.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I move
Okay.
the board authorize the finance director and treasurer to contract with First National Wealth Management for management of the town's cemetery, wastewater, and Weedman Healthcare Trust funds effective July 1, 2021.
I'll
Second.
second that. Or, okay.
All right, Michelle got it. All right, no further comments. And Jeff, roll call. Mark,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, thanks, Mark. Again, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is to act on the Mary Lee Park concerts in the act on the Mary Lee Park concerts in the park proposal. All right, Bill, and I think Doug is here for this too.
Yeah, so in your materials, the Parks and Beautification Committee has submitted a proposal to hold concerts at Mary Lee Park during the summer. I think that's really all I'll say about it, and I'll turn it over to Doug from there, and he can fill you in.
Okay, everybody here okay? Okay. Thanks for getting us on the agenda here so quickly. As Bill noted, this is another request from your Parks Committee to get approval from the Select Board for a project that we're hoping to get going this summer. At the end of this, I hope you'll approve the motion that's there in your packet. Because you all received the packet ahead of time, I'm not going to go over it in real detail. I'll just give you a little bit of background information and fill in some of the details that have come up since the packet was put together, and then just answer any questions you have. The history on how this started is that this past winter, we had actually called the Maine State Parks and Recreation Department to look into some grant money for another project that we're considering. And because we were talking grants, this guy brought up the Mary Lee Park, and he obviously had been with the state for many years because he was familiar with the history, which I was not familiar with. And the papers that are included in your packet are things that he sent to us. And he pointed out that back in 1966, the town actually applied to the U.S. Department of Interior for grant money to help with the cost of building Mary Lee Park. And it was sort of a 50-50 proposition. I don't have the packet right in front of me. I think it was around $8,000, and the Department of the Interior would provide $4,000 and the town would provide $4,000. But the thing that was interesting to me was that when I looked over the paperwork, it was pretty clear that in the proposal for the grant, there was an intent to have musical concerts in that park. And I wasn't really surprised because I think anybody who's stood up at the top of the park there, Central Street, you're impressed by the amphitheater effect that's there. And actually down at the bottom, you can see a small area that would appear to be a stage. And so when I received those documents and we looked at them, that was exactly what was intended. If you look at it there, you'll see there's a stage area and the rest of it gives that amphitheater effect. At any rate, knowing all of that, the Parks Committee got thinking about, well, how can we go ahead and start to get some concerts in the park? And there's a Rockport citizen, Chris Tofani, who's very heavily into this local music scene. And we contacted her and she got in touch with, I think, the Mid-Coast Music Academy, Bay Chamber Concerts, plus some other friends of hers. And it's pretty clear that there's an interest in a lot of the local amateur musicians to take part in this. So what we thought we might do, and these are the details that aren't in your packet there, was the idea would be that on Sunday afternoons from the middle of June through July till the end of August, which is about 10 Sundays or thereabouts, to just have very informal concerts at the park at about 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, lasting for about an hour. These will be local amateur musicians, 1, 2, or 3 people at a time. Some will be kids, others will be adults. And the idea is people will just bring a blanket or their soccer chair and set it up during the performance. Advertising will simply be through the newspapers, websites, and probably most effectively is we thought we could have a sandwich board that we'd put out on the street that would say, free concert this afternoon, 4 p.m. And I think people would see that and, like I say, be interested in coming and sitting to listen to it. We picked Sunday afternoons for several reasons. One, it'll minimize the truck traffic going through town there. There won't be dump trucks and 18-wheelers doing deliveries. Plus, as we all know, the hotel construction is going on, and Sunday afternoons is obviously a downtime. As far as cost, there really is none. I suppose if we had to do one thing, it would be to have Public Works get us a couple sheets of plywood or something similar and perhaps make the stage area a little bit leveler. I did talk in the proposal about buying an amplifier or something at some point. But, a lot of these smaller groups already have their setups. They take it around to various coffee houses and whatnot. So, I don't expect any cost really to be associated with it. I don't think there'll be any disruption to town, mainly Sunday afternoon. And even if there is amplified music, it certainly is not going to be loud. So that's sort of the overview and the details. Happy to entertain any questions that you folks might have.
I think it's a great proposal. It'll be fun to have something happening as you walk through town. And even if people choose not to sit there, they might stand up on the sidewalk and just listen as well. So
Yeah, I think so too.
I agree.
Anybody have any questions? Doesn't look like it. Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
I move the board approve the Mary Lee Park concerts as submitted.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion? All right, Jeff,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Thanks, that was great. Great, Doug, good find. Good idea.
A very quick plug for your Parks Committee. I just want to say what a great group of people that is to work with. They are so active, so involved. They get their hands dirty. I know they are activists, and I'm sure we drove Bill Post crazy. Probably one of the reasons he wants to resign, because we were always trying to get him to do something. But it's an excellent group of people, and I appreciate Mark's and Denise's support for that committee. So thank you all very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Doug.
Doug.
Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is to act on the earned paid leave policy. Bill?
Yeah, I'll open this, and then Megan is with us too to answer any questions, as she did most of the research and legwork on this for me. In May of 2019, the state passed legislation relating to earned paid leave. And then the Maine Department of Labor issued its final rulings on the law September of last year, with an effective date of January 1st of this year. basically what it says is that every employer with greater than 10 employees in the usual and regular course of business for a period of 120 calendar days a year or more must comply with the law, which puts us into the category, obviously. The law requires that for every 40 hours an employee works, they must receive 1 hour of paid time off. There are a bunch of restrictions on how much time can be earned and how it's accumulated and used and that sort of thing. The intent of the law really was to get those employers that didn't offer any paid leave to offer paid leave for employees. And unfortunately, with any unintended consequence with all of these different legislations, it caught the rest of us employers that actually offer leave that in greater amounts than what is here. It puts us in a little bit of a bind because the policies that we have in place now currently with our leave laws, leave policies, EPL doesn't fit easily into those categories with the restrictions that are there. So in reviewing this with Megan, and we've been reviewing this for months. I mean, it became effective January 1st, but we've been going back and forth. I've talked with the town's attorney several times in the labor side of this, talked with other municipalities. Megan's done the same thing with other HR people and finance directors. We felt that because of the different restrictions that are out there with this law, and because it doesn't fit well with what we currently offer for vacation and sick leave, that having a standalone policy makes sense at this point. In addition, we expect that there'll be changes to this law as it gets implemented and we see the actual effects of it, and other employers see the effect of it. And so, I'd hate to have a change in the personnel policy and then have another change in the legislation later on that would change the rules and regulations more. And it might not even be a change in the legislation. It might be rulemaking that change it, which is obviously a lot easier. So that's why we think standalone policy at this point is best. Megan, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I agree. Between the possible changes that it could make, how it doesn't fit into our current policies, it's easier to adjust a standalone policy as the legislation changes than it is to try to get our current policies to mesh with this EPL leave.
And we had some other in the memo that was included in your packet as well. The differences between the two. EPL runs on a calendar year. Our accruals run based on the employee's start date. EPL leave needs to be allowed on a moment's notice. So if somebody calls up in the morning and says, I need to take EPL, we generally have to allow that, where that's not the case with vacation time. And obviously some use of sick time is that way as well, but not all of it. Some of it is, for medical appointments or whatnot. So there's other issues there as well as are written in the memo.
Yeah.
It will no doubt be revisited.
I'm sure that it will.
It's crazy not to credit employers who are already doing the right thing.
Right. And try to work with us. I mean, there's so many differences with this or issues with this law that we were going through, and Megan had a number of questions when we were looking at it, such as, does it apply to volunteer firefighters that are paid for their calls? Does it apply to seasonal employees, which it doesn't? And then what's the definition of seasonal employee? So, I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
And the Department of Labor doesn't, what we would consider seasonal, the Department of Labor does not consider seasonal. So to get our positions to line up with what the Department of Labor determines as seasonal or non-seasonal will take some work too.
Well, it sounds like we have to do it, and you guys have made the best attempt to try to come up with a policy that fits with what's required by the law and works as well as possible with the town.
And as you say, make it a standalone policy so it can be easily changed by a select board when the law does change.
Right.
as opposed to baking it into the personnel policy.
I move the board approve the earned paid leave policy as presented.
I'll second.
That was the second by Jeff. Any discussion? Okay, Mark,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Great. Good job, Megan.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so the next thing is to vote to sign the budget validation referendum for MSAD 28 and 5-town CSD warrant and notice of election for Tuesday, July 8th, 2021. This is just a sort of housekeeping thing that we have to do. And so I don't think there's any more discussion about it, is there, Bill?
No, yeah, that's basically it.
I move the board sign the budget validation referendum for MDAS 28 and 5-town CSD warrant and notice of election for Tuesday, June 8th, 2021.
Is that MSAD? I thought I heard you say MD.
That's because I read what was here and it's MSAD. Thank you, Mark.
But I hate to see you go.
Is that a second, Mark?
Oh, of course.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All right, roll call, Jeff,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Right, so the next item is to act on the special general assistant warrant disbursement policy. Bill, you want to just give a quick rundown on this?
Yes, and Megan is here as well to provide some
Yep.
background if I don't do well. And just a reminder, before I get into this, there will be several things for the select board members to sign
Yeah,
after that.
totally. Right away,
Yes, please.
right away, tomorrow. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
So we've run into some issues with providing emergency housing for general assistance clients recently, and basically it comes down to the fact that we have one motel in town that accepts these individuals to stay. And they originally were seeking basically for us to provide a credit card and have it on file, which I said absolutely not, we're not going to do that. So Megan and GA Administrator Diane Hamilton had met with the motel staff, the owners, and basically developed a process that would, if this is approved, would allow Megan to have a special warrant that would just be for the general assistance stay and allow her to issue that check while that person or that individual would be able to stay the night at a motel or 2 nights or whatever is approved without the board members coming in, a board member coming in and signing it first. I think this is probably the best way to handle this. You know, we do get reimbursed obviously for these expenses. And in these instances, usually housing is obviously an emergency need, usually when we're putting them up into motels. Other housing needs usually can wait and we can go through the normal process.
So just to give you an idea of the timeline, so if the GA administrator or the deputy approves short-term stay on like a Friday, we don't do AP until that Wednesday. It doesn't get signed until the following Thursday. So the check will be mailed out either Thursday or Friday, and then you have mail time. So they're waiting sometimes upwards of 2 weeks to get paid for stay that happened prior to that. And this, when we met with them, they really wanted us to put money down for damages because GA clients tend to not take care of the facilities that they're using. And this was kind of the middle ground that we could find so that we still have somewhere that we can put people up in town for the time being and get them paid when the person is checking into the facility.
And they're okay with it, the motel, this new process works for them?
Yes. Yep.
I move the board approve the special general assistant warrant disbursement policy as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call. Jeff,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, the next is to act on letter to Knox County Commissioners, Ray, the American Rescue Plan funds. We had briefly mentioned this previously with respect to the interlocal agreement. Recall that the American Rescue Plan Act calls for funds to be coming directly to our municipalities, well, through the state to the municipalities, and then also to the county. And then there are certain funds that go to the state for the state to retain. With respect to the county funds, both the municipal funds and the county funds, while Treasury is coming out with further guidance, those funds can be used for infrastructure, including certain types of infrastructure, including sewer, water, and broadband. So in conjunction with Camden, the Camden Select Board's already authorized this. With us approving the interlocal agreement, the Knox County funds would be $7.7 million, which we're requesting that those county funds, which were intended to be used on a regional basis, be applied to broadband. Of course, the county is not responsible for water or for sewer, so these are, an applicable and appropriate use of the funds, and it will make a huge difference in terms of funding the regional utility that we have all agreed to put onto the interlocal agreement and to proceed with, and that we support through the guiding principles that we've all passed. Questions? Okay. So we want to make a motion?
Let's see. I move the board approve the letter to the Knox County Commissioners as presented.
I'll second it. Any further discussion?
The only thing I will say is I realize that in the initial guidance that broadband is authorized. It is not probably the most urgent infrastructure that we have that needs help. So yes, I agree that it would be helpful to have, but I also want some acknowledgement that there are many things that have been waiting on the list to be taken care of ahead of this.
I think one of the issues right now is, I hear what you're saying, Mark. It's water, sewer, or broadband, and water is main water. That's really nothing the county has anything to do with. And sewer is, again, even if Rockport were to decide how to use its money, it's the sewer users, not the taxpayers as a whole, that we look to pay for sewer improvements. So broadband is the one thing that really does benefit the community at large.
Well, I'll give an instance of we're building a fire station, in the near future, that, that's a fair chunk of change that could be used towards that.
But these are
this is county money.
County funds. These are not the town funds, Mark. You couldn't use the county funds for Rockport's fire station. We're not suggesting at this stage, we're not suggesting that the municipal funds, and that's a good, I obviously didn't clarify that well enough, Mark. We're not suggesting that the municipal funds be used for this. We're suggesting that the county funds be used for the regional broadband. So that the municipal funds, yeah, I hear you. So there's like $350,000, isn't that right, Bill? Somewhere around $350,000 that we expect are going to come to us. But something else we will have to keep in mind, though, when we do get the Treasury guidance, Mark, for those municipal funds, is that, the only three types of infrastructure were the three that Denise mentioned that are allowed in the legislation. So we'll see if the guidance, somehow makes that possible to use the municipal funds for anything else, but we may not be able to. But we'll find out more from that guidance. but yeah, it's just the county funds we're talking about. Okay. Okay, any other questions or discussion? All right, Michelle,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
and Jeff.
Yes.
I'm jumping around here. Mark,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Right. So then, thanks. We will do this joint letter with Camden, and we're trying to get as many other Knox County towns to join in on a similar letter. Okay. There are no discussion items. So next item is any liaison reports.
I can do mine. The library committee met, things are going well at the new library, big jump in circulation, especially in the children's area. The lower levels become a very popular place for people to come and work. They're, enforcing the limits on how many people can be down there, but it's a great area for people who just need to leave their house for a little bit and find a different place to work. So that's the library committee. Legacy Rockport, lots of stuff happening. They're going to have a donate button on their website so people can donate to their various projects, which include the lime kilns, the Vulcan locomotive, Simonton Corner, the Museum in the Streets, which is the sort of historical photo and text about various locations throughout Rockport. And sort of a fun thing that they are also thinking about, and obviously this all depends on the pandemic, but the Library Foundation is scheduling events to celebrate the new library at the end of July. And Legacy Rockport thought it would be fun on that Sunday, which I think might be August 1st, to do another dinner on the bridge. So that's sort of, I don't know whether that's just in the guise of brainstorming, and again, how we might be able to do that given the pandemic, but it would be fun to have a community-wide celebration, sort of keying off of the library, but with including the rest of the town. And then parks, as you heard from Doug, there's just a lot of stuff going on with parks, lots of good things. Cleanup work happening this next week, getting all the trash off the sides of the road, primarily by parks members, and then the sort of a lot of other folks throughout town.
If I could dovetail on the parks portion of that. There was talk from Doug about the concert in the park, which we heard tonight. There was a question about who coordinates the events. And Mike, who was the town liaison there, said that he thought Randy would coordinate the events. I don't know who does, but somebody ought to be at least aware of it so that they can answer those questions. Yeah, no, that was, I mean, we coordinate all the events in all our other parks, whether they're weddings or whatever. And usually it goes through Mike's assistant, or I think it used to anyway. But anyway, somebody should be made aware that there's an event happening. Sally had made mention about Sandy's Way with the construction. Motions to approve the music in the park, which we've already done. Park plantings. And my scribbling is sometimes hard for me even to make out, but it mentions that Rhino was starting next week, meaning this week. I believe that's correct. Tree trimming along Beth Owens so that it wouldn't entangle with the newly planted trees. Mulch and cones being located at the Haskell and Route 1 intersection so that the garden could be tended to. Stairs was mentioned again, and I forget who mentioned it, but the stairs were mentioned again on the shore side of the bridge, going down from Pascal Avenue, that they were dangerous. Frankly, I haven't gone down them, but it was mentioned again by somebody from the Parks and Beautification Committee. So that's the extent of mine. Conservation, nothing.
Mark, that just check on parks. I'd forgotten about the community garden. So that's been all rototilled, ready to go. 36 all staked out, 36 lots. 5 of them have already been asked for. And the water goes on this week, so.
If anybody hasn't taken a ride in, it's a good job on you guys and Doug for digging it up, so to speak.
Okay, next, Jeff or Michelle? Jeff.
Let us first unmute. Okay, let's go with the first one that met last week. I'm just going to do the quick overview on the comprehensive plan committee, and then Michelle, if you'd be so kind as to put in the details here. But we're looking at a new tool, and actually have started using a new online tool for collecting thoughts regarding comprehensive plan development from the public, and I'm sure Michelle can provide further detail on that. Marketing it, and then meeting with the subcommittees. Those are the big activities of the comp committee. That committee still meets every 2 weeks and will for quite some time, I'm sure. The Harbor committee met last week, and they too are prepping for providing feedback to the comp plan committee. Harbor Master provided a report, and that you can find, I believe, in your email for the Harbor Master's report of recent. One thing that was brought up, Bill, and this is getting it, where sometimes these conversations go into the weeds, was does it make sense to do the pier repair after some of the paving, or the paving in the park has been conducted, and it might make sense to reverse those. So
Yeah,
that we
I can answer that a little bit. So the plan was to have the pier reconstructed, then have Public Works do the repair behind the seawall where it's washing out, and then do the parking area and the paving. So we would work water back. The timing may not work out great with Proc Marine for that because of materials. I should know probably tomorrow if it's going to work or not. If it's not going to work, because obviously we don't want the pier being rebuilt in the middle of June or July. If they can't get the materials in time to do the repair, then Public Works is going to do the seawall repair and then the parking, or both of those kind of simultaneously, and then put down a binder pavement for the summer, then without doing the final overlay on the paving on the parking area, so that once the pier is done in the fall, then the final layer of pavement can be placed, and it will still be clean and won't be damaged by any of the heavy equipment that will be working on the pier. So we have a punt clause, if you will, so that if we don't get the materials in time, we'll do it in the fall with Proc Marine with the pier, and do the binder this spring.
Great.
Okay, that's it, Deborah.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
So I will go. Investment committee, as you know, we had the proposal tonight, so they wrapped up their work. Planning board has been busy with site walks and a lot of pre-applications. And then West Rockport Fire Station has not met. Just to follow up on Jeff's comprehensive plan, they are using the new tool, which I think will be great, and really talking about how do they get community engagement. So talking about kiosks, talking about trying to have representation from, someone, a high school student or others. So really just trying to brainstorm and think of ways that they can make sure that we're getting the maximum amount of community input once we get to that point. So lots of good work happening there, and will happen for quite a while, but that's my update.
Great. Okay, I think that's it for the liaison reports. So the next item is the wastewater commissioners. So Bill, should we be reconvening as wastewater commissioners? Can we just take this report where we are at?
Now you've got to, I think you have to exit as one, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, if we're going to make decisions, but I mean, if we're just going to hear this report, Bill?
Yeah, it all depends on if you're going to make decisions or not. If you're not gonna make any decisions, then you don't need to be wastewater commissioners if you're just gonna hear and ask questions of Nate. It's up to you.
I think, I don't
Is
know.
there
that
enough
we're-
basis to make a decision?
Yeah,
We've done this before.
Nothing I'm gonna present to you, I think you're gonna wanna, or need to act on.
Doesn't look like we're quite there.
So we can just stay here to receive the report, which is what I thought. Okay. Nate, thank you. Would you like to go forth and report?
I will, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm gonna attempt to share my screen here, so bear with me just a second. And if somebody could confirm that they're looking at a memo.
It worked.
We are.
Great. So this is the document that was in your council packet. So what I would like to do is to just quickly go down through it to explain the work we've done to date. I have a little bit of costing information in this packet that wasn't in your packet, so that will be new. And then
Hey, can you blow it up?
oof, yeah. let me
Right
get that.
down bottom right. Move your slider.
Is that better?
That's excellent.
Great. Okay, so so I'll dive right in. So it sort of starts with a history lesson, just to create a framework for why we are doing what we're doing. So what you're seeing right now is your current user rate broken down by debt service and usage fee. And nothing in here is new and was part of the presentation that we had given back in November, I think it was. But really the message here is the user rate growing to $18.10 per 100 cubic foot is really what has brought the cost of wastewater service in the community to everybody's attention and set us down this path we're currently on. To put that user rate into a little bit of perspective for the select board, here's just a 5-year trend of the user rate in town. You can see both the usage rate has gone up considerably, as well as debt service. You've taken on some debt in the form of capital improvements, so that is to be expected, but really it's this usage rate increasing the way it has that has caused a fair scrutiny. To put it in greater perspective for you, that this is how your user rate compares to your neighbors, or if not direct neighbors, similar communities. So you see across here, the Rockport is far and away the highest, even exceeding island communities where you expect to have a high cost of services. So really just to announce, this graphic is just meant to enunciate the point.
And was Woodward and Kern aware of this difference? Or until we started asking questions and our residents started asking questions, is that when we've all started to learn that we're just not even in the ballpark?
Yeah, it's more the latter, Denise. I mean, you can see how quickly it's grown here over the last couple of years.
Yes, so even 2019 to 2020. Correct.
Yeah, correct. So I think it largely crept up on all of us. So this gets us to this study. And so the study was in essence looking at a very high level the feasibility of constructing your own treatment facility or treatment facilities, and basically handling wastewater collection and treatment within the community and not relying on your interlocal municipal agreements that you have currently with your neighbors. And so, towards that endpoint, we focused on 5 options. There's the Number one would kind of be considered the do nothing option. Keep doing what you're doing. Continue with the intermunicipal agreements with Rockport and Camden. Option two is a new treatment facility in the village area, which includes flow from your Route 1 extension, which is underway now or about to be underway. And that's a significant point because that Route 1 extension is where most of your future build out growth would be. So again, alternative two is a new treatment facility in the village area with the Route 1 flow and continuing with your interlocal agreement with Rockland. Alternative three is two wastewater treatment facilities, one in the village area, one in the Glen Cove area. Alternative four is one treatment facility in the village area that collects all flow from Rockport. So that would be redirecting Glen Cove flow to the village. And then alternative five was, again, one treatment facility in the village area, but not including the Route 1 extension flow that would continue south within your interlocal agreement with Rockland. So those are the five alternatives that we focused on for this study. There's upcoming, there's just a lot of numbers here, so I'll go through them quickly, but here is the flows that we considered for this study. Your existing flows can be generally summarized as you discharge approximately 75,000 gallons a day north to Camden, approximately 55,000 gallons a day south to Rockland. When we consider the construction of new facilities, we always look at a build out capacity. Again, for consistency and continuity, what we considered within the study is a build out capacity that is consistent with the top end of your interlocal agreements as they exist currently. So that is 161,000 gallons a day to Camden, 182,000 gallons a day to Rockland. Those are the top end flows in the current agreements. And then to the flow to Rockland, we considered the what would be what we think will be the immediate impacts of the Route 1 extension or potential immediate impacts. So that's if everybody with frontage in the project connected, these are the flows that we would be looking at. Build out for that area, it can get pretty high as we have to think way out in the future and look at our crystal ball and what would full build out of the Route 1 corridor look like. That results in a pretty high number, as you can see there. So those are the flows that shaped many of our sizing decisions as we go further into this study. I want to pause just quickly and just make sure I'm not talking too fast and not giving an opportunity for questions.
My big question is, and I know that these are just alternatives that you're presenting, but why would we even consider putting this on the RES property? Just because the town owns it?
Correct. Because the town
horrible use of the RES property, in my view.
Yeah. No, I'm not trying to spark any controversy here.
I didn't think so, and I don't want people to get all upset about that, because I can't imagine that's what we want to use the RES property for.
So that's a good point. So I'll clarify. So we had to pick a property, and we focused on looking at the town-owned parcels, and I list those off here in a moment to just be the basis of comparison.
Okay.
All right. As we're looking at pipe to get there, pipe to discharge from it, we had to try to remove some variables, and so we considered that property. But we are a long way,
right,
from saying that we would ever put a treatment plant on the RES property.
Absolutely. Okay, I just want to make that clear. Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
Okay. So, considering those flows above, this is how they translate into dollars. And we looked at it a couple ways. And again, I'm gonna breeze by this a little bit because we're gonna come back to it. But as we consider the cost of discharging to your neighbors, we have the cost as currently written into the agreements, which to Camden is $7.46 per 100 cubic foot. To Rockland is $6.07 per 100 cubic foot. We just considered what those annual costs would be. And then for the purpose of a comparison, knowing that we are renegotiating some of those rates, I threw in here a number that would give you perspective of what a negotiated rate would look like. For the purpose of this discussion, I just said, what if it were half? Again, we'll get into more detail on these numbers a little bit later.
There's one that if I could,
sure.
You've shown a proposed flow to Rockland that's many times greater than current. And my question to you is, the Rockland's wastewater treatment facility has hydraulic capacity limitations already during heavy rainfall, and 90% of the normal flow comes from one discharge. Do they have the capacity to handle this? I realize you're doing it for scoping what the full maximum could look like, but is that even feasible to be thinking 27 million gallons are going to Rockland when only,
So just let me clarify one thing before I answer your question. So this is in cubic feet. So it's actually this number divided by 7.48 to get to gallons. So it is considerably less, but back to your point, Jeff, their current facility would not be able to handle that build out flow. And so this is probably, if you consider a planning period of say 20 years, this is a flow that you might see 20 years out, very hypothetical.
Correct.
Plenty of discussion would need to occur with them, negotiation with them to be able to receive this flow. It would require treatment plant upgrades on their end.
Yes, that's something I think everybody should know, is that number is a very large number for maximum future full capacity going wide open in that Route 1 corridor, and the current treatment plant in Rockland could not handle that.
No, it wouldn't. And again, just kind of looking in the crystal ball here, if you jump fast forward 20 years and this flow is real, the way they would pay to upgrade their facility is over to the right in the total annual cost to them. So there's mechanisms for how they could accommodate that flow, but your point is well taken, Jeff, that no, their treatment facility in today's terms would not be able to accommodate that. Okay, so just again, moving down through the options, the alternative for a treatment facility in the village area while keeping the interlocal agreement with Rockland, that's described here. I don't think it says anything we haven't already talked about, just to bore you with the details a little bit on the type of treatment system that we were envisioning. And it's a package plant called a submerged attached growth bioreactor. It's just an activated sludge plant, and we, for all these options, we consider an ocean discharge.
How much space generally does the plant take up? I mean, can you just give me some kind of idea?
That's a good question. I'm kind of waving my arms around right now. An acre, maybe. It's a little bit of a guess.
Okay, thanks.
With fence line and stormwater measures that you have to, parking areas and storage garages and everything that comes with a treatment plant. Again, the two treatment facilities. So I want to make the same caveat that was made in talking about the RES site and how conceptual and high level. For the Glen Cove treatment plant, we assumed a location which would be on the north end of the picnic area, down at the bottom of the hill. So that site might be equally distasteful as the RES site, but again, we had to pick a location for just for continuity.
Well, I think what's really distasteful from the RES is we see that as is like a welcoming spot to Rockport. You know, it's like, you know, entering a portion of Rockport, the village. I mean, and we see that as some of the most valuable property we have. So obviously we want to use it for, you know, for property that brings value to the town, and certainly not a sewer treatment plant. So, but anyway, it's down the road. I mean, I think the Glen Cove area you're talking about, well, there are parts of it that aren't even used. So, but anyway, that's all down the road. Okay.
Understood. Alternative 4 is just a restatement of what we've already talked about, and sort of same with alternative 5 is a restatement of what we've already talked about. So this, you know, conclusions and recommendations, this paragraph is where it, in your packet, this document ends off. The one additional thing I want to show you in this portion of the presentation is just this table here, and I hope it all shows on your screen as one. I might have to make it just a tiny bit smaller. So this is just a summarized table of capital costs and the cost of a wastewater discharge within your interlocal agreements. So
we did not get this with our agenda, right?
You did not, correct?
I kept looking for this.
Yeah, no, correct.
Okay.
So, so this is how they sort of lay out. You know, staying with your local agreement doesn't have any capital costs, so that's why those cells are left blank. One treatment plant in the village, keeping your interlocal agreement with Rockland, but receiving flow from the Route 1 extension is just over 10 million capital cost. 2 treatment plants is 12.5 million. One large.
So the 10 million, is that huge, that 25 million flow that you project?
No, that would be alternative 4.
Okay, all right, sorry.
And then, you know, really the difference between, say, alternative 4 and alternative 5 is a small treatment plant in the village, while all of the Glen Cove area and the Route 1 extension continues to Rockland, and that's where you see this really large annual disposal cost, again, for several million gallons of flow a day. So that's, you know, that's a lot to sort of absorb, and again, I'm gonna auger into these in a little bit more detail later in the presentation, but this is sort of where this part of the presentation ends.
And this might sound ignorant, but how do you get from all of these numbers down to the $18 or the $13 or the sort of numbers that are just easier to understand when we're trying to improve our sewer users' rates?
I'm going to show you that soon.
Okay.
But, and that sort of dovetails into, again, the dovetail thing, but you know, I'm also interested into our perceived I&I issues, and I'm wondering where we are in your exploration of our system to determine where that is and if it is.
So I can tell you the current status of what I know. So we have found 2 sources of I&I, one on Summer Street. It's, I believe, a sewer service that is separated from the main. And then we have a sag in the line just outside of the Beauchamp Ave pump station. Those are scheduled to be replaced if they haven't been replaced already. I've got to follow up with Andy, but he had Rhino Excavation, I believe is the name of the local construction company, scheduled to fix those. So those are two sources of II we found in the system. The other area that we were targeting was simply we replaced the Camden Street flow meter, and we wanted to remove that variable from the discussion as to whether or not that flow meter was recording accurately given its age. Sitting here today, we only have 3 months of data, January, February, and March. We've seen a reduction in flow through the Camden Street station. Looks to be about 20%, but it's way too early with not enough data to for me to at least tell you what's going on there.
Well, I mean, yes, thank you. That's more than I've gotten in some time. But, you know, the other thing that the board, we need to keep in mind is at some point in time in the very near future, and we probably ought to be doing it now, is our agreement with Camden again. So any adjustment in numbers that we can give them in documentation will help us on the billing on their end. So I don't know, Bill, if is that on the agenda to be done anytime soon?
I think you'll learn much more when we get to executive session, Mark.
Yeah, that's part of the executive session. We're going to
All
have some more discussion on this.
And that, yeah, speaking of which, before I forget, now this is part of, I mean, I heard during the budget portions of this that it takes several $1,000s to put a camera down these systems that we didn't have. And this is part of that infrastructure that I think is acceptable with what we've been given for information. So there again, this money that we have coming could potentially be used to help improve our current wastewater system.
Yeah, possibly for the municipal funding.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Are we ready? Do we have any more discussion now, or are we ready to make a motion to go into executive session?
I move we go into executive session. Oh, wait, no, I've got to have that in front of me.
Executive session pursuant to 1 MRS section 405 6E to discuss a legal matter.
Yes. Second.
And then, okay, any discussion? All right, Jeff? Jeff? You need to come off mute.
You need to repeat the question. I had to step away for a moment.
Yeah, that's okay. Just to go into executive session.
Yes.
Okay, Mark?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
So just give us a minute for people to leave and for us to end the live stream.